Kia ora e te whānau, no mai haere mai, welcome to episode tuatahi, the first episode of Embrace the Mess. I want to talk about rest. I want to talk about rest because I've been thinking about it a lot lately and slowing down, because those things are really far from what we view as, or what we've been conditioned to view as productive and as an extent of that good. And unfortunately, I was down with the flu for what felt like a whole month recently. I'm better now, but sending all of the love out to everyone who is healing and dealing with all that. It's not fun. It's a bad one. But what I thought about a lot when I was trying to recover was I feel so guilty for just resting and for not doing things with all this time I had. You know, I had to take days off work because I couldn't work because I was too sick. And I was like, I should use this time to fix that thing or make that thing or do that thing. And that's funny because that's not what rest is. We've been conditioned to function like we're on a production line all the time, so that when we really do need to simmer down and take some time for ourselves and let our immune system reboot and fight off what it needs to fight off, or just recharge, or there's many different types of rest. But I just found that really interesting, that it was almost a battle with myself to practice resting. And I think this is something that comes with seasons. I think I learn it. I am reminded that I need to practice my rest and find what rest I need. And then I do, and it's wonderful. And then I go back into life, or I go back into social life and work and things, and I forget. And with the seasons that we move through as people, I think I get seasonal reminders. And I don't mean just the seasons of nature throughout the year, calendar year, but seasons that we go through in our life. I think we have many different ones. And the reminders of these things like rest come to us because we forget. And that's okay. I was also telling myself that it's okay that I've forgotten how to rest. Maybe I just haven't found it yet in this season that I'm in. I haven't figured out, or I haven't allowed myself to feel what rest I need right now. So I had to allow myself space to figure that out and try some different things. And it just baffles me that our society is still running on these systems of these colonial systems where our rest is not honored and our spirit is not taken care of because of things like productivity and money. And I'm not saying that we should all. It's a privilege to be able to get to rest when we need to because of this structure that our society has. We don't all have the privilege to be able to rest when we need to, because that means that there won't be any money coming in, or we won't be able to support our family or ourselves, and lots of different things. So it is a privilege to be able to rest when we need to, and it's a privilege to even be able to recognize it, because we've been taught all these ways to suppress it and move through, and hustle culture and go and get everything done. And we align that sort of almost toxic hard work ethic with success. So if I need to take a day off because I'm overrun with, if I don't have mental clarity and I need some time to go for a walk or do something else, it's not honored in this society, in the systems that our society runs on, and therefore, because it is not aligned with success and hard work and things like that, it's seen as maybe weakness, and it's seen as laziness, and we label it with all of these different things, which is so interesting to me. And the buzzwords that come from that as well, like, because this buzzword of self-care, having a self-care day has come up, which I think is a step in the right direction. But, you know, capitalism feeds off that so much, being like, if you're going to have a self-care day, you need to buy this diary exactly, like you have to have your house clean and everything like perfect. You have to do a face mask and you have to have a bath and you have to do all these things for self-care. Otherwise it's not proper self-care. And the irony in that is huge, because that's still the system that we're in, making money off us not doing something correctly. Yeah, I have an interesting relationship with buzzwords like that. But I think hustle culture is an interesting one, because it used to be really, to be a hustler. It was a really positive thing in my world anyway, when I was younger. And I thrived on being able to just push through and go. And then as I've gotten older, it's kind of really changed for me that it's not about hustle. Like, you can be a hard worker and not overwork yourself, I think, is where I'm getting at. That hustle culture for me is like, I want to live slowly. I want to live presently in each moment. I want to have the social and energetic capacity to have a conversation with you and be completely present. I want to live like that. I want to put my heart and soul into everything I'm doing. And if I don't have capacity, you know, do the best I can and then go and recharge, and then be able to put myself in as a whole person, not as a burnt out shadow of who I am. When I'm burnt out like that, trying to work, it's not very productive anyway. But it's so interesting. It's because we've been taught these really hard go sort of habits, and this is how you're seen as a successful person. This is how you're accepted by society. And they come from survival tactics. You can completely understand why. Like, we want to fit in, we want to exist. This is the way the world is. We haven't been taught how to listen to ourselves. We're not practiced in the art of trying to find out what rest we need. An example is, okay, so one of my favorite podcasters, her name is Alexis Fernandez. She does the podcast Do You Fucking Mind? She recently released one about bed rot. Bed rot is when you're like, you don't want to get up, you don't want to do anything, you're just sitting on the couch, you're lying in bed and you're scrolling on your phone, you're just scrolling, and hours go past. And then you're like, oh, I need rest because I'm so tired. So you're scrolling on your phone, and you just don't feel any better, even though you've rested. I'll link the podcast in the show notes that I'm specifically talking about, because she will explain it a lot more eloquently than me. But essentially that's a mix-up between us thinking we need body rest, which is why we're lying down still, thinking it will make us feel better, when actually we need emotional rest. And we don't get emotional rest from scrolling on TikTok and Instagram, because it's sending our dopamine firing systems in our brain into overdrive. So we're not actually getting the rest we need, and that's why it's a continuous cycle. And there's many different types of rest. Social rest, and there's obviously physical rest, and I need rest from society. I need to be healed by just hearing the sound of the birds or hearing the sound of the ocean. It's like rest from my schedule and rest from like the bustle and things like that. That's my favorite kind of rest. Even just going for a walk. Sometimes I wear my noise cancelling headphones, but I don't put music on. I have the noise cancelling. It's great. So we need lots and lots of different kinds of rests, and something that is again baffling to me is that we're not taught this. I encourage you to think about the last time that you were tired, and then start to ask why am I tired? What am I lacking? What am I doing a lot of? Where is the imbalance? And then you try to find the imbalance, and then that's one way that we can practice trying to understand ourselves and listen to ourselves better. If we were encouraged to do these things like trial and error and things, and we lived in a society and a system that supported those, one, we wouldn't be made to feel like failures or weak or any of those silly things. But two, we'd be able to try out different stuff. Maybe we need a half day. Maybe we just need like an extra hour in the morning to ourselves to do some journaling, or like go for a walk or just have a moment alone. I love that. Sometimes I need social rest and just need to be alone for like 2 hours. So if we were trying out these things, and we would be able to figure it out when we needed it, would be able to figure out what rest we needed when we needed it. So I encourage you to, as I am doing myself, constantly figuring out what type of rest I need, trying stuff, and having grace with myself, because you can't get better at things without making some mistakes. It's how we learn and how we figure it out. And if we all did it, who knows? Maybe employers would have, maybe they'd try it too, and maybe it would be a trickle-down effect where they get to try things because they don't feel like a failure either. Anyway, I think the thing with hustle culture that really gets me, it's not about not working hard. I believe in working hard, and there's beauty in working hard and putting your whole self in something. But it's the violence of self-improvement. It really, for a while, I think it was earlier this year, kind of last year, had quite a rigorous routine. And it was, it came from wanting to implement better habits into my life, which is a really good thing. It started from fitness, I started going to the gym and things like that. And then I started to put more habits into my schedule, just little ones. So I wanted it to make it sustainable. And I was aware that I didn't want to put too much on my plate at the same time and be overwhelmed. Which was great. And it was really fun to figure out. I felt unstoppable. I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I read Atomic Habits by James Clear. Great book. But essentially what happened was I got so obsessed, or not obsessed, but like into the routine, that I completely lost the space for surprise and for spur of the moment adventures and spur of the moment things. And so that when something in my day would change, I felt like a failure. I felt like I'd failed my task and I was a terrible person. And I think what I did was I went down this spiral of wanting to improve myself so much that I wasn't accepting myself where I was. And because of that, I couldn't listen to myself. I couldn't listen to my body and what my tinana needed. I couldn't listen to my spirit. I couldn't listen because I was so caught up in like doing these things, doing. And I wasn't able to come back to myself, come back to the ground, because there wasn't space in my schedule. And I think I really learned then that like, even if you're doing something that is completely out of the best intention, something like improving your habits, which I think is fantastic. And I think it's great growth. And I think I really learned so much about the capacity I had for growing and changing myself if I really wanted to, which is wonderful. But it really can become a little violent if you're not allowing yourself to be as you are. Because if we get caught up in who we're not, then who we are gets a little lost and a little sad, and they need a little love. So something that I was putting into my schedule was meditation. And it got to a point where I was doing it every morning, which is absolutely fantastic. I rate meditation so hard, and other forms of deep rest like yoga nidra, which is sort of like a yogi sleep. It translates to loosely. Maybe I'll do a podcast about it one day. And I think through the meditation, the irony is that I wanted to improve myself. But the meditation made me want to not do my schedule and not do my routine and not do in some ways, because I was like, how can I couldn't hold this present mindset constantly throughout my routine, because I needed to like take a minute and chill, and I couldn't see that because I hardwired myself so hard to be like, you're going to get better, you're going to do all these things, you're going to, these are the goals, this is when you're going to accomplish them by blah, 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 which is, again, great. But I was in this contradictory mindset of like, being really present and accomplishing all my things. And I wasn't allowing them to work together because I wasn't allowing space in my routine. So that was just a really big learning experience for me. So the other thing I wanted to mention that I needed a rest from was when I had the flu. I was also started some nicotine patches to quit vaping, which slay, encourage you all. It's so worth it. It's really hard, but again, I'm being graceful with myself, and I'm 7th time's a charm, guys. But what the nicotine patches and the flu did for me was, I'm already someone who has very vivid dreams, but they made my dreams just like crazy through the roof. And I was waking up in the morning, and I was like, I'm not rested. What is happening? So I needed a rest. I felt like I needed a rest from my dreams, and I just loved that as a paradox. We're good now. We're good now, Etefano. We're back in the real world of regular dreaming, which we love. But it also made me think about and do some research on the importance of sleep. I will link the Andrew Huberman podcast with Dr. Matt Walker in the show notes, but it's about the science of sleep, essentially. And that it's not just you need 8 hours. There's also research coming out now that has been done on not just males about who needs how many hours of sleep, and it's actually coming out that people who aren't males might need more hours per night of sleep, so not the traditional 6 to 8 hours that we thought, which was very interesting. But there is a data gap in a lot of research, but we can get to that in another podcast as well. But what I learned from the importance of sleep with Dr. Matt Walker is that it's not just the hours that are important, it's the quality, obviously the quantity, the regularity, and the time in which you go to sleep. And I was listening to it, and they were talking about this. So you know how some people can just get up in the morning and it's just a breeze. They can just get up in the morning, and some people really struggle to get up in the morning because our society, again, colonialism, this 9 to 5 structure, but actually not everybody is programmed to be able to get up in the morning. There's these things called chronotypes, and they originate from way back in survival days when we roamed around in packs, and someone always had to be awake to protect the group from predators. So there was, always everyone took turns in staying awake, and some people were sleeping when some people were awake, and then others were sleeping during the day, So it actually, our chronotypes, whether you can get up early in the morning, whether you're a midday kind of person, or you can stay up really late, whichever, we're all different. We're all different, and they come from the survival mechanisms that we created back in the day. But because our society runs on a 9 to 5 model, it actually doesn't hold space for everybody who's hardwired in their genetics to stay up all night. And I find this really interesting in terms of creatives, because I talk to some creatives and they are like, no, I need to get up and paint in the middle of the night. Like, that is my creative time. So it's kind of another way that society's not really super supportive of creative people. Side note, I think everybody is creative in different ways, and we'll get into this over the course of the season. But it's another way it's another way that the system that we're running on doesn't work for everybody, and it essentially, by only working for some people, it makes some people feel better about themselves and some people not feel better about themselves. It also means that our time, our super heightened best performance time is different throughout the day, and we have a dip in our energy as well at a different point throughout the day, and that's for everybody, but it's all just a different time. So I just find that really interesting. The way that I was creating during my very routine, hardcore scheduled time was not sustainable for me, and it wasn't coming from a place of a place where I could hold my creativity with love. It was like I had times in my schedule that, okay, I'm gonna make this thing here, I'm gonna make that thing there, and it didn't leave enough space at all for any of those things that I was working on to breathe, is one. And two, I was exerting my creative brain just so much without feeding it anything, and without taking care of it, and without giving it uffy, and it made me not want to create anything. And I think the same goes with how we recognize whether or not we need rest, or what kind of rest we need in the way that we're not supported to do that. With creatives, is that our creation process, my creation process is going to be completely different to everybody else's, and different depending on what I'm working on. So all you creatives out there, I just shout out who are working on mahi right now. Give yourself space, give yourself grace, give yourself time to let it breathe, because maybe that's all it needs. Did that rhyme? I just, there's no straightforward line to make anything, especially if you've never done it before, which is quite often the case. You're making a new show, you're making a new piece of work, you're making a new song, and rest we need creatively comes in so many different forms. It comes in going to see other work. It comes in writing something or doing something that's out of our regular medium to kind of refresh ourselves. It comes from being social and doing things that aren't creative. Creativity needs space to be able to bloom. We can't force it out. There is so much hustle culture behind it that is encouraging us to do it, that we're we just got to do it, just got to get through, got to get through. And sometimes, yes, you can do that with creative work. Absolutely. I'm not saying that you can't, but it's different. I find the metaphor of the pause or the breathing space is really important. One of my tutors from Toi Whakari, TUPE LUALUA, who is an absolute legend. What she really taught me in uni was the importance of the pause and the breath. Because I was someone who was I'm going to move heaps. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make this really hectic and put all I have into it, and which is lit. We love that. Pop off queen. But sometimes when you're giving everything, it's nothing without a pause before, in the middle, or after it. Because when can we see the comparison? When can we see how big that moment was if there was no space to let it breathe afterwards? So I think that's something I'm really taking with me going forward, is we need the breathing space. Because without the breathing space, without the pause, without the settle, the explosion isn't as big. And the moments either side of it can't be as full. Anyway, might be getting a little bit abstract, but you take from that what you need. Here's another example. Every 2 weeks-ish, give or take, me and my friend Anna go on a big hikoi somewhere around the rohe, around the region. We pick a different one most times, one that neither of us has done, or we try to, and we take our phones, I guess, but this is our catch-ups because we don't work together anymore. We used to. I don't really drink. I don't really drink as much anymore, so we don't really run into each other at parties. We've both kind of been on the health buzz, and So our phones are kind of like, unless we're showing each other something or checking the map so we're not like getting lost in the wops, our phones pretty much stay in our pocket, and we just get to hang out and chat in the bush. Is pretty much what we do every 2 weeks. And it is every single time. And we go somewhere, well, we're really lucky that Te Whanganui Atara has a lot of bush around. Wellington has lots of bush that is not even far from the city, to be honest. Big sleigh. And more often than not, we just like walking and seeing where we end up. And we get home 4 hours later. But it's so refreshing. Every time I'm like, do I want to go on this walk? Do I want to go on this walk? Oh, maybe I have stuff to do. Maybe I have stuff to do. And I'm like, just go on the walk. As soon as I get there, I'm like, grateful. This is amazing. And we go, and it's just me and her in the forest, and you can't hear cars, and you can't hear phone beeps, and and it is healing, I tell ya. It is so healing. I know it's winter, but you got a raincoat. Get out there. And I don't even know what type of rest that is, but it is just delicious. I rate that. Something else I just wanted to touch on in the realm of rest was the difference between rest and the desire for comfort. I think we can get them confused sometimes. I definitely can. And I think that the desire for comfort is needed, and I'm very comfortable right now in my studio. I love it here. I'm very comfortable. But sometimes when I think I need rest because I'm doing something hard and I'm either afraid or I'm doubting myself or something, I don't actually want the rest. I have the desire to be comfortable. So I think it's important when we're talking about this to keep that in mind, because the interesting thing with comfort is that sometimes the desire is actually better than the actual comfort in the end. Anyway, when you're in a hard position, when you're doing something hard and it is requiring you to put in a lot of energy and thought and really be present, the desire is like, ooh, I would really love to be in my bed right now. It'd be great. But it's like, if you were actually in your bed doing that, would you feel a little devo that you didn't finish that thing you were doing? Or maybe you wouldn't. And that's how I think I'm trying to figure out when I need rest and when I have a desire for comfort. For example, this podcast. This is the first podcast I've ever made. I'm a little bit uncomfortable doing it, which is great. But if I didn't record this today and I just went and watched TV or got in bed and had a wee nap, I would feel a little bit disappointed in myself because I knew I had the capacity. I knew that I had the capacity to do it today, and I didn't. So I guess that would have told me that I didn't need the rest, but that I desired the comfort. But obviously it's definitely this one and definitely this one. Like, I'm sure it's a spectrum of what kind of rest and comfort and all of these things and working hard and how they all fit together, of course. But I think the point of why I'm making this podcast, this episode specifically, is to question yourself, question your surroundings, question what people are asking you to do, question what you think you should do and what you would actually rather do. Question if you're doing something for the comfort or because you actually need the rest. Question whether or not you can see a possibility to rest here. Can you say no to some things? Can you say no to like one thing and then see how you feel? Because if we can cultivate a culture, a way of working that honors our rest and honors us figuring out what we need to do to be rested, then that's going to filter into so many other things. It's courageous to rest. In this world, this capitalist white supremacist society that we live in, that runs off working hard for not very much money, and if you don't, you're unsuccessful, it is courageous to rest. It is radical. Rest is radical. I do love that buzz sentence. Rest is radical because it goes against what government and society are telling us is equal to success, which is working yourself to the bone. It goes against what we've done for years and years that obviously doesn't work because it's burning people out. I believe that there is an epidemic of burnout right now, and we can't recognize it when we need rest. But then that's not our fault. It just is. But we do have the power to start to change it. We need trust to rest as well. It's hard. This is new territory. We've not been here before. Trust is a huge one because the fear is around us that if we don't get this thing done, we're going to be unsuccessful, or we don't do this thing this particular way that it's been done before, it's not going to go well or whatever. We need a lot of trust to rest, but we can, because the world is not going to crumble if we take some time off. The world is not going to crumble if we say no to that party. The world is not going to crumble if we turn our phone off for an hour to go for a walk. And we need curiosity to rest. What will happen if I turn my phone off for an hour? What will happen? Will I get bored? I don't know. Let's find out. Will it be exhilarating? Maybe. Is being bored that bad? Not really. I feel like we've kind of forgotten how to be bored a little bit. So with courage and trust and curiosity, I encourage you to try rest in whatever capacity that means for you, because it is changing my life exploring this in this deep way. I don't have a rigid schedule anymore. I still use the calendar, obviously, but it's not rigid because I'm allowing space for myself to rest. And again, that's an extreme privilege to be able to even say, but where is there space? Where can I make space for me? What would our lives be like if we prioritized rest? What if we changed our systems and slept when we desired to sleep? What would our creativity look like without thinking we had to do it in specific ways on specific days? What would our patience look like if we had space to rest? What would our passions look like and our hobbies if we had space to rest and space to disconnect? I encourage you this week in one way to rest. I'll do it too, I promise. Thank you so much for listening, e te whānau, lending me your ears. I appreciate it very much. If you have any feedback, questions, queries, or corrections, no mai ngā pātai, no mai ngā kōrero. I would love to hear them and have those conversations. You can find me on Instagram at etm.pod. Less perfection, more authenticity. Ka kite anō.